Why Bumblebee is the most talkative character in Transformers 1 according to Star. Transformers 1 star Keegan-Michael Key has explained why his version of Bumblebee will be the prequel movie's most talkative character. Serving as an origin story for the Autobot and Decepticon leaders, Optimus Prime and Megatron, Transformers 1 will take audiences back to the planet Cybertron to a time before the two characters became bitter enemies. Featuring an all-star Transformers 1 voice cast led by Chris Hemsworth and Brian Tyree Henry, Key is set to play the Transformer known as B-127, or Bumblebee, whose live-action version of the character was only able to communicate by using short radio transmission bursts. Speaking with For Lysol's Here for Healthy Schools initiative, Key explained that while the live-action Bumblebee would later lose his voice from an incident that prevents him from being able to speak, during his early years on Cybertron he was once known to be overly talkative. It is the character's natural loquaciousness, and its stark contrast with his future characterization, that makes his eventual mutism especially tragic. Check out his comments below. Keegan-Michael Key, this film is the origin story of Optimus Prime and Megatron and Bumblebee. So this is prior to, if you remember from the lore of the films, the accident that happens to Bumblebee that keeps him from being able to speak. Interestingly enough, he's the most talkative character in the film, which we use to comedic effect. I think you'll find it interesting because he actually comes across as a very loquacious character. It's interesting to see, because then it's going to inform those later movies that have already happened. You're going, oh my gosh, he actually talked all the time, and now he's essentially a silent comedian or a mute in the live-action film. So, it's exciting and it's very interesting. SR, wow, really making that as tragic as possible down the road. Keegan-Michael Key, yeah. I want to add that extra layer of pathos to the character. When Michael Bay introduced his version of Bumblebee in 2007's first live-action Transformers movie, established fans were somewhat taken aback by the character's portrayal. Not only had the movie introduced him as a yellow and black Camaro, rather than his original form as a Volkswagen Beetle, but his newfound mutism was also a distinct change from his characterization in the original cartoons. Ahead of its release date later this year, Transformers 1 confirms the return of familiar Autobots and Decepticons from the franchise. Initially voiced by Dan Gilvezan in 1984's The Transformers animated series, the original Bumblebee was also a fairly verbose character well known for his smart aleck demeanor, earnest nature, and constant desire to prove himself in the eyes of his fellow Autobots. While 2018's Bumblebee movie would eventually serve to reveal the true cause of his character's inability to speak, that prequel still spent most of its runtime depicting him as a mute character. It would even show how he came to learn to use his radio to communicate. In 2018's Bumblebee, the damage to the titular character's voice box is sustained during a surprise encounter with the Decepticon Blitzwing. Now, however, Key's version of Bumblebee will finally offer fans a glimpse of the character that has not been properly seen since the franchise's earliest days. Moreover, by supplying his character with the voice of one of Hollywood's best-known comedic actors, the beloved Yellow Autobot will very likely return to his original, clever ways in Transformers 1 when it finally arrives in theaters. Transformers 1 is an animated action-adventure movie that marks the first animated feature-length film for the series in decades. The film will be a prequel to the franchise, and will tell the story of Optimus Prime and Megatron in their early years, how they met, and a closer look at the war on their home planet, Cybertron.